My name is Brady Kirkman, Executive Director of Marketing and Business Development here at Windermere Health, and welcome back to The Pulse. Today we are joined by Jill Liepold. How are you today, Jill?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Jill. Tell us a little bit about what your role is here at Windermere Health.
So I have been here for almost 20 years here at Windermere Health. I've been the manager now for about 3.5 years. We have 7 other lab techs that are here in my staff. So we cover the laboratory about 24/7, and so our laboratory services.
Well, excellent. And I understand that we have a special week that recognizes your department coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
So every year, this year is April 20th through the 26th, we have our National Medical Professionals Week. So it is a week that's dedicated for any medical laboratory professional, all the different scopes of the laboratory staff, as far as recognizing them for their importance of diagnosing and helping with patient care.
You know, it's so often your team is doing the essential work behind the scenes, and sometimes people forget that the impact it has. You know, when you go and see your provider, a lot of the results are determined by the lab work that you do. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's really a very teamwork approach to making sure that diagnoses are accurate.
Exactly.
Well, and I also understand you recently received an award. Is that correct?
It is.
Well, let's share our audience this. Approach.
This award is actually from, it also is a community award from the Community Blood Bank Community Impact Award. It's from the Community Blood Bank, is who we get our units of blood in for that we would be donating, that is donated here in Windham, and also that we would get these units back. And if someone would need a transfusion, if they are through the emergency room or chronically anemic, they would get these units of blood back to them. So,
well, and I think one thing that's really important to people who donate blood is the fact, if I get blood here, does this stay in the region?
Yes, it does. So Community Blood Bank has a bubble meal that comes here, and then that they take the units back to Sioux Falls, and from there they process them, and then we will get some units back here and store them here in our blood bank.
Well, that's excellent, because I know it's important for people to know that, hey, if my blood could be, some support or assistance to a relative, a neighbor, a friend, a community member. So that's excellent. And that is a milestone of how many? So
this was a impact award for 3,000 donations from the community. It actually impacts about 9,000 patients then, because each unit of blood that is donated could help 3 other people. So that's about 9,000 patients that receive blood.
Wow, that's impressive. One last thing I want to talk to you about before we wrap up here is there's really no typical day probably in your role, but talk to us about how many services you provide, maybe in a month.
Our monthly, our typical day is that we have someone come in at about 6 o'clock in the morning. That person would actually get all of our analyzers prepared to run for the day. We also would have someone go to our inpatients and draw the patients that are on the floor here at the hospital. And then from there, we would, during the day, we would have outpatients that would come. And if they need some lab work, we would draw their blood and ran them samples. And of course, if an emergency would come through, we would have to help the physicians with those blood draws also.
How many tests do you do usually a month?
We have, our goal is always around 10,000 tests per month that we would like to have.
Well, excellent. If they need to get a hold of you or your department, Jill, how can they reach you?
So the easiest way, if you need to have some lab work done, you can call the main hospital number, and that's 507-831-2400, and ask for our scheduling department so that it could go onto our schedule. Of course, walk-ins can be done too. So,
well, that's Jill Liepold today with The Pulse. We'll see you next time.